Hey, what's up, guys? Chris Nelson here. It is Friday, September 29th, 2023, and welcome to a special live stream where Ron DeSantis is about to take the stage at an event in Long Beach, California, and I'm going to be streaming this live. So it should be starting soon, and I'm going to share the screen. RFK Jr. running as an independent, guys. And I'm wearing my RFK shirt, which triggers so many people. While I don't, hey, Disco Phil, what's up? Welcome. While I don't agree with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on everything, because he's a Democrat, he's got different views, abortion being the biggest one. I do believe that RFK Jr. is a principled man, much more principled than Donald Trump. So if Donald Trump is the and I didn't know about RFK Jr. until he was standing against the vaccine stuff. Him and Del Bigtree were people that I learned so much from. I mean, you know, if you haven't read it, this is a real must read here. This is a real must read. And it is the Real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And you see how Trump bought up the world's supply of remdesivir and let Fauci use his bully pulpit to do these things, and was going to appoint to promote remdesivir as a drug. And he was going, I mean, the stuff in this book is sick, what you find out. And Trump should have either known about this, and if he did know about this stuff, he should be in jail. But turning down RFK Jr. from being the vaccine safety czar and then taking $1 million from Pfizer. I mean, it's all in here. That's why when I hear people say, oh, he'll be Donald Trump's vice president, it's just like laughable. Kennedy wouldn't have anything to do with Trump. But he actually wrote the foreword in Joseph Ladapo's book you can be, just RFK Jr. is a principled man, and he understands the Constitution. Same with Ron DeSantis. So here we go. Let's share the screen. This should be starting right now. Ron DeSantis in Long Beach. All right, let's go. All right, let's go. He's so cool. He's like a really cool guy. Here we go. Ron DeSantis in Long Beach with the truckers. Cool. Let's listen.
Celebrated their new one business. And California has lost a lot of business to the East Coast ports over the last few years, some of which will never return. And this is going to make it worse. Curiously, this will result in actually increasing overall pollution. You might ask how. It's going to push import and export cargo away from the most efficient routes, causing the cargo to move through the Panama Canal to the Gulf for the East Coast ports, and then eventually to its final destination. It's going to result in more miles traveled, which results in more pollution. I tried to get my colleagues to see this, and they just wouldn't. Another ramification is that many thousands of middle-class and blue-collar logistics jobs in California will continue to be lost. My motto has always been that we need to continue to be good stewards of the environment while also protecting and growing middle-class jobs and small business. That used to be a reasonable position held by people on both sides of the aisle, but not anymore. For all those people who think you can't reduce emissions without eliminating diesel trucks, I say hogwash. It's absolutely ridiculous. The Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach, along with the trucking industry, have been doing just that. The Port of LA just released numbers 3 weeks ago showing that still, while using diesel trucks, we were able to reduce diesel particulate matter by 88% compared to the 2015 baseline year that they base everything off of. The nitrogen oxide levels were down 62% and the sulfur oxide levels were down 97%. So we're already making impacts, and we just need to continue to focus on that. But instead what we have is a rule that's going to put some of us out of business. It's going to raise costs for everything that we're buying, and it's going to put some of my employees on the unemployment line. And that's exactly why I'm glad that the governor's here today. I truly feel that my state doesn't care about my business or the people I employ. This should make me angry, but instead, it makes me sad. I'm a fourth-generation Californian and a third-generation business owner. My governor's never visited my business, but a governor from 2,200 miles from here is here today because he cares. And for that, I'm glad. Governor DeSantis, I was hoping you would run for president long before you announced, because I know that you're with us. You will stand up and fight for small business and blue-collar workers, not the crony capitalist corporations and organizations that are seeking to use government and regulations for their own self-interest. It's an honor to have you visit us today, and I'm proud to introduce Governor Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I thought Snoop Dogg was going to be
Well,
here,
thanks so
but,
much. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. We've been out in California all week in anticipation of and now in the aftermath of the presidential debate at the Reagan Library. I remember, growing up in Florida, that California was a long way away for me. I never got to spend much time here until I was in the U.S. Navy and got orders to Naval Amphibious Base Coronado to join Naval Special Warfare Group 1 in anticipation of a deployment to Iraq. This is 15, 16 years ago that happened. And I'll never forget checking into the bachelor officer in beautiful Coronado. And as a Floridian, the first thing I look for is the air conditioning. And they say, you don't need air conditioning here. Just open the window. It's nice. And I'm like, okay, great. Open the window. There's no screen on the window. In Florida, you got to have the screen because, we have bugs. No, you don't even need a screen. You just do it. It's nice and fresh. And I'm like, man, this is pretty good. I could get used to this. And we were in there. We were training in Coronado for a while. And then Iraq, not the best place in the world to be. So you come back, and I'll never forget landing at Naval Air Station, North Island in Coronado after being in Iraq for all that time. And then just getting off the C-5 and then the freshness of the ocean air hitting you, and you're like, man, it's great to be back in America. And I understood kind of being out there why so many people for so many decades have built a pathway to come out to California. And so it was a little odd for me when I became governor. Having been born and raised in Florida, I don't think I ever saw a California license plate in my state. Now all of a sudden I become governor, and I got a lot of California license plates showing up in the state of Florida, particularly after COVID started. Right. A lot of my supporters were concerned about how some of those people may vote in Florida because at that time Florida was considered a very competitive state. Now it's not because of all the good things we've done. But at the time there was concern. But what it was a lot of those folks had been driven, some of it by the COVID insanity that was going on in California, some of it by the education, locking kids out of school, some of it was crime and how criminals are not held accountable the way that they need to, taxes and other things, business climate, but we've now been able to have a lot of people move from San Francisco, move from Los Angeles, move from San Diego to different parts of Florida. So they've been able to tell me some of the things, that they've done. And I think it'll be an interesting debate when we have on November 30th, the debate between me and your governor here in California. I think it'll be instructive, not necessarily about which state's better, because I think people have voted with their feet on that. But as I see the things that are being done in California, this is basically the petri dish for leftism in this country. So whatever Biden's doing, he's a few years behind what they're doing here in California. So I think the things that are doing, like this diesel truck mandate, EV, all that is absolutely going to be done nationally. And I know they're working together on that. So it's really about of the country. I think the country's going into the state of decline now. We need to reverse that decline, and the success we've had in Florida shows a model for American revival, and that's exactly why I'm running for president. I want to just give my support to the truckers and the trucking industry. It's something that's very important to us in Florida. When I became governor, we had about 350 truckers, probably about 600 truckers that we would produce through our training programs every year. Now, through a lot of the investments we've made, we're producing 3,500 new truckers every year in the state of Florida. That is important for the economy. You doing your daily thing. A lot of times people don't appreciate how integral these truckers are to our standard of living and our way of life. I know when you had interruptions here, people started to feel that, and that's real. And we need to make sure that this is a vibrant industry going forward, and that means providing people with the pathways to be able to go in. It's not an easy job, but you do have an opportunity to make some pretty good money now. But it's very, very important for a strong supply chain. And in Florida, we're proud of the ports. Yes, some of the business that's left California has actually come to some of Florida's ports. I know we had a big company out of Singapore, I think left Long Beach, I think they did, and they came to Jacksport in Jacksonville, Florida. So we're proud of that, but we know to get those ports to where they need to be, you've got to have strong trucking, and it's important. It also goes into the costs and the inflation that you're having to contend with. Right now, grocery costs are probably double than what they were just 4 or 5 years ago. Things that we used to take for granted are now becoming out of reach. And these are people, you're working hard, you're just trying to raise families, and you get stuck with these big bills. Buying a new home with interest rates at 8%, good luck with that. Our housing market's in big trouble because of that. Even purchasing new cars, the price of cars are up 70% in the last 4 or 5 years. These mandates are going to make those costs go up even more. So you have people that are imposing policies in Washington that are making you pay the bill. They're not paying the bill for it. They just keep doing it. And this is behavior that really started with the COVID lockdowns in 2020, the trillions of dollars that were spent. Of course, that's going to cause inflation. And that's both parties, Trump's Republicans and Democrats,
there he goes, both
that have
parties.
had a hand in that. And this is making it very, very difficult for people. And if we as a country, if you can't work hard and succeed, raise family, and realize the American dream, if it doesn't work for people that are doing everything right, this country is not going to succeed. And so we need to fix that. And my goal as president, what I pledge to do as president, is to restore that American dream for people all throughout this country. How do you do it? How do you give relief to people who are suffering under these higher prices? There's a number of things we're going to do, but one of the things we're going to do, and it's maybe the closest thing to a silver bullet that we have, is we need to make this country energy dominant. Yes, independent from needing foreign countries, but more importantly than that, we need to be by far the dominant energy producer in the United States. That means we have to use more of our resources here in the United States. We have to choose Midland over Moscow. We have to choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we have to choose Bakken over Beijing. It is good for your bottom line. As president, I want you to pay lower gas prices. I want you to have relief at the grocery store. I want you to be able to afford a home. I want you to have lower interest rates. All that piece of the puzzle is American energy dominance, because the energy costs implicate every single thing we do throughout the entire economy. When energy goes up, not only are you paying more at the gas price, and I'm seeing $7 a gallon out here in California. I don't know how you make that work. If Biden and California leaders have their way, I think that'll go even higher in ensuing years. Good luck being able to afford that. That's totally unacceptable. So we want to lower prices, particularly in California. And there's got to be a way to not let those regulations here cause the price to be as high as they are, because as high as gas has gotten nationally, it is lower than it is here in California pretty significantly. So people here are getting really socked with that. This will help drive down inflation, energy dominance overall, and we need to deliver that for people. But you look at it, it will help our national security. Why would we want to do things that are going to make us more dependent on China? Why would we want to do things that are going to empower Russia or Iran or Venezuela? It makes no sense. Energy dominance will make this country more secure, and we're going to deliver that. And part of the way we're going to deliver that is we are going to reverse the Biden mandates for electric vehicles.
Yes.
We are going to save the American automobile.
Yes.
You should be able to purchase the car that is best for you and your family. You shouldn't have Washington, D.C. or the state of California telling you that you can only buy the type of car that they want you to buy. They say that this is somehow better for the environment to force electric vehicles, but I can tell you one thing is the things that go into making these come from communist China. I don't see how it's better to rely on China for anything. China's doing a lot with electric vehicles in their own country, but guess what? You can't just look at an electric vehicle and say, what is the emissions from that? You have to look at what is going into creating the power that you need to charge the battery. Where does China get power from? Coal-fired power plants. They're putting two new coal plants come online in China every week. What is cleaner, American oil and gas or Chinese coal plants? So yes, they're going to have EVs, but you got to count all the coal that's burned to be able to power their electric grids. And I think the people that are imposing these mandates are not honest with people about the true environmental cost that goes into the mandate. So we don't want to be dependent on China. We want to be able to do our own fuel here with traditional American automobiles. But you know what? If you want an EV, man, knock yourself out. It is a free country, and that's your right to be able to do that if you want that. I do think that these mandates are going to cost Americans a lot more to be able to afford to purchase a car. And we've already seen when COVID hit, you had the supply chain interruptions, and then you've had the inflation since then. It's made purchasing a car for families almost cost prohibitive in many instances. These mandates are going to make that worse. You're going to have a more difficult time affording an automobile because of government mandates, and that is wrong. Now, I know California has done even more draconian mandates with respect to electric vehicles. What I don't understand is when they announced that, I think it was earlier this year, they announced the way forward there. Eventually, all new cars produced in or sold in California have to be EV. You're not even going to be able to buy a traditional automobile. I noticed that a couple days after that, there was a message out to current EV owners saying not to be charging your EV because of stress on the power grid. You have rolling blackouts here. You have problems delivering reliable energy as it is. How are you going to be able to add millions and millions of new EVs on the road using the power grid under your current infrastructure? It's going to be a huge, huge problem. And that's the case nationally, too, with what Biden wants to do. We don't have the grid capability to be able to do it. So is the future of America rolling blackouts, not having reliable energy? I can tell you this, as governor of Florida, we have to deal with natural disasters. We understand that hurricanes can come, and we just had one a few weeks ago with Hurricane Idalia. One of the things you have to do in those circumstances, and we stage people before the storm, we devote a lot of resources to be able to rapidly restore power for people so that people could get back on their feet. When you need to restore power, I'm not able to do that with windmills. I'm not able to do that with solar. I need oil and gas to be able to do that. I need reliable energy. And these mandates are putting us in a situation where we don't have adequate, reliable energy to be able to meet the needs that this is going to do. So we will take action as president, give Americans relief from that. And so we're here now with the trucks because Biden has worked with your governor to do these electric mandates on these big rigs. And if you look at the big rigs, this is not something that is designed to be an electric vehicle. I mean, these things are designed to run on the diesel, and that's what they need. Ports like Long Beach, I think very soon, all the new sales for big rigs are going to need to be electric. What does that mean for you? Well, all of that EV is going to make all these trucks much more expensive. Do you think that the companies are just going to eat that cost? No, they're going to pass it on to consumers in the form of higher prices for the goods that they're transporting. How reliable will big rigs be that are electric vehicles? Well, I think they get about a radius of 100 miles on a single charge. Then they got to find a place to charge. It takes some time to be able to charge it again. How is that going to help efficiency? How is that going to help these ports get the most out of what they can do? It's not going to do that. It's going to interrupt the supply chain. It's going to make it more costly and more difficult to be able to do businesses. And we saw what happens when the supply chain is exacerbated. This will basically be baking in supply chain problems as a permanent feature of the American economy. That is wrong. That is bad for Americans, and it's bad for our economy.
By design.
So we are going to provide relief as president. We need to be smart about this. We need to embrace innovation. We need to embrace consumer choice. We should not be embracing mandates of this kind. And if we want to reverse the economic decline our country's in, it's going to be through invigorating the private sector. It's not going to be through imposing these draconian mandates on top of the private sector. I look at the economy now and see, I don't think there's been a 3 or 4 year period where people have lost more ground than they have in these last few years. Of course, it does go back to the response to COVID, goes back to the government spending, it goes back to a lot of the mandates that are being imposed. It goes back to not realizing our full energy potential here domestically. We're going to reverse all of those policies, and we're going to provide relief for the American people. In Florida, we've approached all this much different. You want to talk about reducing emissions? Florida has reduced emissions really significantly over the last 10 years. Has that been through mandates? No. What's it been through? It's been through utilizing natural gas more for the power needs of the state. It's cleaner than coal. It's something that has led to a significant reduction. If you're serious about doing things like reducing emissions, you should be embracing natural gas in this country. We have more reserves in places like the Marcellus Shale than anywhere else in the world. We could power the world for decades and decades and decades just with natural gas. We would be able to export from there. The developing world would be able to get online, to be electrified in ways that would be cleaner than whatever pathway they're going. And I think Dwight made a good point. A lot of these mandates, people change behavior. Behavior shifts, capital shifts, and it usually, when there's a green mandate imposed, it usually shifts behavior to even dirtier forms of energy. When we're begging Maduro for oil or getting oil from the Saudis, do you think they do cleaner oil and gas exploration than we do in the United States? No way, not by a long shot. So a lot of those are counterproductive on their face. So we need an economic revival in this country, and that's what we're going to deliver. We also need, and I know people here in Southern California have experienced it, we have huge problems because of the open southern border. Joe Biden is basically derelict in the performance of his duties. He took an oath to take care that this Constitution of the United States was faithfully executed, that he would faithfully enforce the laws of the United States, and now he's allowing the Mexican drug cartels to run roughshod over the southern border. We have millions and millions of people pouring in. We don't know who they are. We know some are coming from Russia. We know some are coming from Iran. We know some are coming from some pretty bad places, and yet they persist on coming through with no end in sight. And it's probably worse today than it's been at any time throughout Joe Biden's administration. Drugs are pouring across the border, human trafficking, sex trafficking, really bad stuff. As your president, we're going to put a stop to it on day one. We're going to declare the border to be a national emergency. We're going to restore the sovereignty of this country, and we are going to lean in against the Mexican drug cartels who are responsible for killing tens of thousands of our fellow Americans through fentanyl overdose. And this is happening in communities all across the country, not just in border communities. I've met so many angel moms over the last couple years who've lost kids to fentanyl overdose. And I know that we've got issues in this country with addiction that we need to work on. But the thing that strikes you is you could have a young kid think they're taking some pill. If it's laced with fentanyl, they could die just on that one pill. And these are people that are not even addicted to drugs. They may have made one bad choice,
when I was a kid,
and all of a sudden their life is over. That's brought a lot of pain to communities throughout this country. It needs to stop, and we will stop it. The other thing that we're going to do is we are going to restore law and order in this country. Just being in Southern California over these last few days, my wife and I have run into 4 or 5 people that reported that they've been mugged in the last year in different parts of Southern California. That was not the case here if you went back 20, 25 years ago. There was a dedication to law and order all throughout the country. Now you have certain jurisdictions where prosecutors are not willing to hold people accountable for criminal misconduct. Some of the laws they just don't want to enforce, and so the inmates end up running the asylum and public safety collapses. And so when people are telling me that when they go shopping they take off their jewelry because they don't want to get mugged, even in nice places in LA, that's a huge, huge problem. We can't allow people to not do their job and put the citizenry at risk by letting criminals run the street. In Florida, we had 2 different prosecutors who got elected on similar platforms to your prosecutor here in LA County and said, some of the laws they're not going to enforce. Well, I removed them from their post because that is not their job to pick and choose which laws to enforce. Their job is to faithfully enforce the law and to protect the citizens of their jurisdictions. In Florida, we stand by the police. We support what they're doing. We support their mission. We don't allow prosecutors to let the inmates run the asylum, and we hold people accountable for their criminal misconduct. That has resulted in Florida's crime rate being at a 50-year low. And that's just a matter of will, it's a matter of leadership, and it's a matter of policy. But I'm really proud of what so many people have done. And oh, by the way, anybody in law enforcement out here in Florida, if we recruit you from out of state to come work at one of our agencies, we give you a $5,000 bonus right off the top. And it just shows you that we value what people do in uniform. We know it's integral to have a safe and secure society. And we can talk economy, we can talk education, we can talk about all these issues that are so important. If you don't have safe communities, all that stuff goes by the wayside very, very quickly. So I want to thank everybody who's been here today. I want to thank the truckers. I want to thank everybody associated. It's been great to be out here for the week. We've been able to cut ground in terms of the debate and all these other things, and we look forward to being able to make it back. We'd love for you to come to our website at rondesantis.com, and we look forward to seeing you in a lot of these early states in the days and weeks and months ahead. Okay, anybody have questions? Yes. So what I've said from the beginning is I'm pro-life and I'm going to support pro-life policies. But what I've also said is, the reality is this is something that is a bottom-up thing where different states are going to approach it differently. And I have not had a lot of confidence in Congress being able to deliver anything productive on a variety of fronts. And so, my position is that it is, but at the same time, I've always said just what the reality is. And so you have Iowa, different than New Hampshire. Obviously, California is going to be much different than Texas.
Can we kill our babies? Please, can we keep killing babies? Can we kill babies? Governor DeSantis, I just want to know, can we still kill our babies if you're going to be president? We'd love to kill babies. Hey, what is wrong with these people?
I really believe that every candidate owes it to the voters to show up and earn their vote. And this idea that you can take a poll the year before a primary and then disenfranchise voters by not showing up, that's wrong. You got to show up, you got to answer questions, and you got to defend your record. Republicans lost in 2018, 2020, and 2022. 2022 was probably the most favorable set of circumstances you could have running. Inflation, I mean, the country was in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Inflation was high. Interest rates were rising. Crime was bad in a lot of areas. The current incumbent Democrat, very unpopular. You literally just need to show up most of the time and you would pick up a lot of seats. And yet, they lost seats in the Senate, barely won in the House. And the only reason they won in the House was because New York overperformed and Florida had a red wave. We had the red wave in Florida because of leadership. So we have to go, you have to make the case to Republican voters how you're going to be able to get the job done. And I'm somebody that's proven to not only get in these big fights, to win these fights, and then to deliver strong electoral victories. I could serve for 2 terms. I don't think a lame duck president is going to cut it because we know there's so much that needs to be done. So he needs to come and he needs to defend his record. I've just, I remember going to his rallies in 2016. A lot of the things he said then, draining the swamp, Mexico paying for the border wall, eliminating the national debt, all these things he didn't do. And now he's running on a lot of the same promises he made back then. I think he owes it to come out and debate. I offered, since Sean Hannity is doing the debate between me and your governor here in California, I told Sean, let's do it between me and Donald Trump on Hannity. I'm happy to do that. I think he should show up to the normal debates, but if not, we'll do it. But let's go. He's had a lot to say about me on social media over the last 9 months. Well, now we can get up there and we can make this case in person.
Call him yellow belly coward. Call him that. You got to use that line, man.
No, no, not at all. I think like anyone that watched that debate the other night saw, there was one person who acted like a president should act.
Yes,
and if
right,
you
like
look at how they
like
were carping and all this stuff, to me, I thought it was very off-putting. And my role there was to deliver the message to the American people about how we reverse this country's decline. It was me to deliver the message to the American people that I've actually delivered. All the things they're talking about, I've delivered. You want to talk about budget? We reduced the debt in Florida since I've been governor by 25%. We cut taxes. We reduced tolls. We ran budget surpluses. You want to talk about China? We banned the purchase of land by the Chinese Communist Party in the state of Florida. You want to talk about crime? We have the death penalty for pedophiles reinstated in Florida. We support police with bonuses and making sure our streets are safe. You want to talk about illegal immigration? We banned sanctuary cities in the state of Florida. You want to talk about things like education? We have universal school choice in Florida. Every parent has a right to take a scholarship to a private school. They can go to a charter school. And even within the school districts, they have choices to be able to go. On issue after issue, I've delivered where these other candidates have just talked. And I think it's very clear as you look in these early states where this stands. So we're going to be the candidate built for the long haul. We're going to get the job done starting in the early states, and we'll be able to bring this to a conclusion, hopefully pretty quickly. Yes.
Yes, bring it to a conclusion quickly, please. Jeez, indeed, it's September. Let's get this over with. Bring it to a conclusion quickly. In other words, he's going to...
So everyone that has come illegally under Biden, we got to go, they're sending back. So that's going to be the first priority. That's probably 6 or 7 million people right there. It's going to require a lot of effort. It's going to require us to lean in. But if you don't have a sanction for violating the law, I support building a wall. I support all this. You're going to continue to have it. I would note that the former president is campaigning on the same promise he made in 2016 that he didn't deliver on. In fact, Obama's first term, there were more deportations than under Trump's term in office. Now he's saying he's going to do this great thing. He had 4 years and didn't get the job done. We're going to get the job done, but I definitely think the people that are coming over, kind of last one in, first one out, and we're gonna really push forward strongly on that.
Obama.
Yes.
Kicked out more. He's taking all these questions. Look, I wish I was there. That's okay. All right. DeSantis, come back to Florida and have a press conference. He's in Florida all the time, but come back and have a press conference so I can ask you questions. I wish they had a mic so we could hear them. Everybody, that's like the number one complaint about these pressers, but.
So, well, I think the bill you're referring to in Florida was we did pay protection with respect to teacher union dues, and I think that should be absolutely law. I mean, I look at California and how the teacher union has a hammerlock on the education system here. I think it's been really bad for education in California. We just got ranked #1 by the American Legislative Exchange Council for Education. We're ranked #1 by U.S. News and World Report. The most recent NAEP rankings, the nation's report card, first post-COVID, we're 3rd and 4th, respectively, in 4th grade reading, 4th grade math in the entire country. In Florida, I can tell you when I was growing up, California education was one of the top, certainly in years before that. Now it's been ranked in the bottom 5. I think there's rankings where they're behind only or ahead of only like Mississippi and Louisiana. And I think it's because of the teacher union. So what we did in Florida is we said, okay, you can join this if you want.
Yes.
You can't automatically deduct dues from your paycheck. Because what they do is they pressure people to sign an authorization form. They give it, and then the dues just come out automatically.
So wrong.
So we don't do that with these school unions. If you want to join, you can join, but then you give the money directly to them as you see fit. What that has done is I think it's shown just how much money has been taken out. People can make a judgment about whether they think that's good or not from them. I can tell you the school unions in Florida have fought us on almost everything, and yet I've delivered more pay increases for teachers than any governor in the history of Florida. We've done billions of dollars in increases in teacher salary, increasing that average minimum salary so that we can recruit more teachers. It's very important. The school unions, though, in Florida, when we said in COVID, every school needs to be open in June of 2020, they sued me in court to try to close schools.
They did.
So if they had their way, they would have locked these kids out of school for a year and a half, like they did in San Francisco and some of these other places. How they behaved during COVID, especially in some of these big cities, was a disgrace. They turned their backs on all these vulnerable kids. And the thing that really galled me is you'd have some of these union leaders that would send their own kids to in-person private school because they could afford it. The people that got hammered with those school closures were low-income, working-class families, particularly in urban areas. In Florida, we stood up for those folks. We understood what it was that those kids could be in school 5 days a week in person. We understood how important it was that parents had the ability to get their kids into school. I mean, when you have a single mother who's providing for the family, she can't do that and be an in-person teacher at home and homeschool. So it just didn't work. And obviously the science on it was so backwards to suggest that kids shouldn't have been in school. But those school unions fought us on that.
Yeah.
We beat the school unions. We got kids in school in Florida. And I don't think you would see our performance be where it is had we followed what some of these other states did by denying kids the right to an in-person education. We fought, we won, and the kids in Florida are better off as a result of it. Yes.
Like the 5th question. He's taking them all, man.
We are in a situation where what they have been doing in Washington for the last 3 or 4 years is shutting down the American dream for American families. You're paying more for everything because of their conduct with respect to borrowing, printing, and spending of money. I think they need to change conduct. I think they need to do things in a way that is not going to exacerbate the inflationary problems that we're seeing fit. So when I get in as governor or as president, I'm going to do like I did as governor, and we're going to be willing to wield the veto pen if they're spending too much money. I vetoed billions of dollars in excessive spending in Florida. I think the record for vetoes had been about $800 million in one budget when I became governor. We broke that record. We did $3.3 billion in 1 year. That was about 3% of our budget that year that we vetoed, and that's part of the reason we've run big surpluses. That's part of the reason why we have reduced our debt, our outstanding state debt, the way we have. So I think these guys need to do what they said they were going to do. They all say government's spending too much money. We know it's caused harm to each and every American. Are they going to reverse course? Are they going to get us on a more sustainable posture? Well, in Florida, we've showed it can be done. Our budget is half the size of New York's budget. And New York has 1 million, 2, 3 million fewer people than Florida does. And yet, anytime these New Yorkers move to Florida, what they'll tell me is how easy it was to get a driver's license, how the services were good, how the roads are better, all those things. So how is it that we can provide what needs to be provided at half the budget? All you got to do is have the will to do it. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for leadership to reverse the economic decline of this country, and that means they have to acknowledge the role that federal spending has played in creating the mess that we have. All right, guys, thanks so much. God bless. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, that was a lot of questions right there that you took. And I really got to remember to write things down. There he is, shaking hands. You know, that guy there, he was ready to go. I could tell, but you know, there he is, jeans, cowboy boots. All right, so there's DeSantis, and he's there in Long Beach. I mean, I thought he was going to be like at the beach with Snoop Dogg, smoking a blunt, but apparently that is not what happened. He's there with the truck drivers, and you know, starting out, I need to start writing these things down so I remember. But you're still there, Nate. You're still there, Nate. Look. Okay, we'll talk. But a lot of these guys, okay, like Nate. Oh, I'm sorry, Florida man. I'm not. Look. Who are dear friends of mine, and you still are. You still are. Do you remember, Florida man, when you got so mad at me because I confronted Ron DeSantis at numerous press conferences and events he was at? And you were like, don't New York my Florida, blah, blah, blah. Well, what is Donald Trump doing? The New Yorker. Nobody has New York, Florida more than Donald Trump. He's one of these guys that comes down here only during the winter to go to his palace and to, his which is, okay, look, Mar-a-Lago is probably worth over 100 million, maybe like a couple $100 million, not $1 billion, Eric Trump. But, okay, let's get back to this. Okay, let's start with climate change, all right? Because it's debatable whether man is causing climate change, all right? I don't believe that mankind can affect the Earth's climate, okay? I just don't. I mean, have you ever been in an airplane and you sit there? By the way, when you cross the country in an airplane and you see how much wilderness there is in middle America, do you really believe the Bill Gates nonsense about overpopulation and stuff like that? Okay, you might feel it when you're on the 95, in between Palm Beach, Miami, but outside of these concentrated areas, it's mostly wilderness. So please, there's plenty of room on Earth for people. All right, and God made it that way. So on the environment, okay, Ron DeSantis is not okay. Good. I'm glad you're back. All right, now Florida man, do you remember when you were leaving me angry, nasty voicemails, shrieking at me about opposing Ron DeSantis? This is the problem with all these people. Like, they hated me back when I was calling him out in 2021 over the mask mandates that were still happening on a local level. Even though, see, I think DeSantis thought that he could sign an order and nullifying all these orders, and they would stop, but they didn't. So we protested, and then he eventually tied their hands via laws. But I mean, at that time, Trump supporters. All right, now we're going back to the he's a great governor, blah blah blah. Well, yeah, he's going to be a great president, okay? And a lot of these Trump supporters, they didn't like me. They've never liked me because they were all fawning over DeSantis in 2021, and I was calling his ass out. And guess what? He did what I asked. And now I'm supposed to hate him, and all them hate him, but I like him now because he did what I wanted him to do. All right? It's not all about Trump. Please. This Trump-centric ideology where like everything revolves around Trump, it's got to stop. Stop with this freaking nonsense. Okay, so we'll start with the climate change stuff. Okay, so all right. Okay. So instead of saying that environmental things are a hoax and shouldn't be addressed, what DeSantis is doing is he is showing that the best way to stop burning more fossil fuels and to do these things is by energy dominance. You heard him say it. Energy dominance. Not energy independence, energy dominance. So what he means is if we are looking at the Marcellus Shale, if we are looking at the places in America, Alaska, where we can drill for oil and drill and have our own energy dominance, it will be better for the environment. Okay? So the best way to have clean energy is through natural gas. All right? That's why when Biden came in for the gas stoves, when Biden came in and the bottom line for these people, the libs, and he mentioned this, that California is way ahead on this stuff, and he's making direct shots at Newsom with these things. That Newsom is more of a lib than Biden. He's 5 years ahead. Did you hear him say that? He said it's 5 years ahead than what we're dealing with now. All right? And what he means is Newsom is fully embracing this electric vehicle mandate, okay? What they want, and he makes fun of it, and it's funny, that electric vehicles can only go like 100 miles, and then you have to like recharge them. Do you see how easy it will be to control people if everybody must drive an electric vehicle, okay? It'll be pretty easy because they're reliant on the power grid, all right? And let me tell you something about rolling blackouts, all right? In California, I couldn't believe this. My wife used to live out there. They have these, I can't, okay, all right. Florida man, I appreciate you. I do, but, if you want to go with the anti-Semites, then go ahead. I don't have a problem with Israel. I mean, I don't. Out of all the countries that America is giving money to, Israel is like the only country that I would support money to. So, And by the way, who moved the capital to, or moved the, Trump was very pro-Israel. So, but, and that's what I agree with him on. So, I mean, we'll just have to agree to disagree, I guess, on that. But when it comes to the environment, electric vehicles are easy to control. Okay, so if like, the government decides we're going to impose mandates on you, I know that they would never do that, and they do it through like the EPA. They do it through the fourth branch of government, which Mark Levin, who wrote this great book called The Liberty Amendments, Restoring the American Republic, the fourth branch of government, which is the administrative state, the EPA, the FBI, the OSHA, which they tried to impose the vaccine mandates through. We don't know who these people are, but they're empowered by Congress. And do you notice, like, nobody's really caring about this government shutdown stuff? Like, oh, again, it happens every 2 years. Like, oh, yippity-doo. Like, when the government shuts down, nobody notices, okay? Ukraine still gets their checks. Social Security still gets their checks. Medicare, the VA, they all still get their checks. A few parks are shut down. Like that's all that happens with a government shutdown. Nobody's even taking this seriously, okay? So, like, who cares? They do this every, like, couple of years because they're incompetent. But with the electric vehicles, they can turn off the power grid. Like in New York or in California, what they do is they shut down power for people. Not the elites, though. There's a real elitism going on here. If you haven't noticed, and I've been amongst the elites, okay? I have. I could be kind of like one of them if I wanted to be. I could. I know you're like, oh, Chris, you're not one of the elites. Because the elites like to have a mouthpiece, and they like to have people, around them kissing their ass and stuff. And I've had a couple shots, okay, to be among the elites, okay? And every single time I see some, asshole or some liar that needs to be called out, so I go call them out. And then I get, stripped of my elitist credentials and kicked out. But with the electric vehicles, what they can do is regulate you that way. Like rolling blackouts in California happen because they say, oh, you can only have so much power. They distribute so much power, and now we have to shut the power grid down. I mean, it's insane. You don't have that anywhere else. Brownouts, blackouts. So you have to go without power for like an hour. But do the elites have to go without power? No. Gavin Newsom is at the French Laundry having dinner. His house is fully powered. No problem. Up on a hill. In California, they have a lot of hills too, which is good for the elites because they like, when you're up on a hill, it's harder to get there. Like in Florida, it's all flat, okay? Which makes it harder for the elites. But in California, you have these hills so the elites, they can be up on these hills and then have gates and all things at the bottom, guards protecting anybody so you can't get up there. You know what I mean? So they're not affected by this. But the plebes, me and you, we are. Okay? So with electric vehicles, what they do is they can regulate you with that. They can say, oh, look, you've reached your limit. We're shutting you down. All right? So DeSantis says, here in Florida, what we do is we rely on American energy dominance, natural gas, okay? The stuff we get out of the earth, all right? The stuff that is, and then what I like about the DeSantis proposal and how he positions himself on this is that he doesn't like attack them as being wrong about climate change or whatever other theories they have, because you can argue that the climate of the earth is changing. It changes every winter, summer, and spring, but we know that God promises to never allow the earth to go under any kind of crazy changes like it did during the flood. He promises this in Genesis. So if you believe in God, you know that there won't be another flood or that natural. We'll destroy ourselves, but God's not going to rain down a flood on us. It's not going to change like that. Okay, but a lot of the people that believe in climate change don't believe in God, so they think that, and they're trying to like fulfill some kind of void in their life. Most of the climate change people are like atheists, and they're very rich, and even though they have everything their heart could desire, they have this void in their heart. So of course God can't fill it. So and Jesus can't fill it. So they have to. Of course he can fill it, but they don't believe that. So they're finding something else to fulfill it. So they look to all these false religions like climate change, like Donald Trump, like all these other false cults and religions and Nexium and all these like Keith Rainier and these people that are going to like fill the void in their life, and that they can give penance to so they can feel better about themselves, and that's the climate change people. But instead of trying to tell them that they're all wrong, he's saying, look what I've done for the environment in Florida. What will be best for Florida? Or what will be best for the environment? Energy dominance in the United States. Natural gas. Because what happens is when we are reliant on electric vehicles, we're burning more coal. How do you think that electricity gets to the vehicles? Is it magic? Is it like we have a magical way of producing energy that we didn't even know before, and now all of a sudden these electric vehicles? I know they're doing some cool things over in Europe with trying to make hydrogen in a different way, and that's like 15 years out, 15, 20 years out. But for the meantime, no. How do you power electric cars? Coal. You burn coal. So more coal is burning, which is what the Greta Thunbergs and Gavin Newsoms are allegedly against. So by switching to electric vehicles, what you're doing is you're actually contributing to more of those things that they say causes climate change. So what DeSantis is doing is saying, we're not going to go along with that. All right. So here in Florida, no governor has done more for the Everglades than Ron DeSantis. Okay. He stood up to Big Sugar and vetoed bills that were going to Big Sugar, which they dominate a lot of. They're a huge lobbyist group, and it's interesting because Ron probably took money from them, but he's notorious for taking money from people and then telling them, I'm not going to be your slave. You can give me money, but I'm not going to like do what you want. So he vetoed a bill that all these Republican establishment people wanted that would have benefited Big Sugar in relation to siphoning off water from Lake Okeechobee. He said no, because he wanted to protect the Everglades. So when it comes to the environment, DeSantis is, you couldn't have a better guy. So he's taking that approach. All right. So with the other things, all right, the wall. All right. This is the number one thing. And I talked about this last night, that you have all these people coming across the border. All right. We don't know who they are. Where did they come from? He says that a lot of these people are from Russia. Like, are they from Russia? And they're coming in, and these are all young men. Let's go back to what he says.
Have universal school choice in Florida. Every parent has a right to take a scholarship to a private school. They can go to a charter school. And even within the school districts, they have choices to be able to about how we reverse this country's decline. It was needed to deliver the message to the American people that I've actually delivered. All the things they're talking about, I've delivered. You want to talk about budget? We reduced the debt in Florida since I've been governor by 25%. We cut taxes. We reduced tolls. We ran budget surpluses. You want to talk about China? We banned the purchase of land by the Chinese Communist Party in the state of Florida. You want to talk about crime? We have the death penalty for pedophiles reinstated in Florida. We support police with bonuses and making sure our streets are safe. You want to talk about illegal immigration? We banned sanctuary cities in the state of Florida. You want to talk about things like education? We have universal school choice in Florida. Every parent has a right to take a scholarship to a private school. They can go to a charter school. And even within the school districts, they have choices to be able to go. On issue after issue, I've delivered where these other candidates have just talked. And I think it's very clear as you look in these early states where this stands. So we're going to be the candidate built for the long haul. We're going to get the job done starting in the early states, and we'll be able to bring this to a conclusion hopefully pretty quickly. Yes. So everyone that has come illegally under Biden, we got to go. They're sending back. So that's going to be the first priority. That's probably 6 or 7 million people right there. It's going to require a lot of effort. It's going to require us to lean in. But if you don't have a sanction for violating the law, I support building a wall. I support all this. You're going to continue to have it. I would note that the former president is campaigning on the same promise he made in 2016 that he didn't deliver on. In fact, Obama's first term, there were more deportations than under Trump's term in office. Now he's saying he's going to do this great thing. He had 4 years and didn't get the job done. We're going to get the job done, but I definitely think the people that are coming over, kind of last one in, first one out, and we're gonna really push forward strongly on that. Yes. So, I think the bill you're referring to in Florida was we did pay protection with respect to teacher union dues, and I think that should be absolutely law. I mean, I look at California and how the teacher union has a hammerlock on the education system here. I think it's been really bad for education in California. We just got ranked #1 by the American Legislative Exchange Council for Education. We're ranked #1 by U.S. News and World Report. The most recent NAEP rankings, the nation's report card, first post-COVID, we're 3rd and 4th, respectively, in 4th grade reading, 4th grade math in the entire country. In Florida, I can tell you when I was growing up, California education was one of the top, certainly in years before that. Now it's been ranked in the bottom 5. I think there's rankings where they're behind only or ahead of only like Mississippi and Louisiana. And I think it's because of the teacher union. So what we did in Florida is we said, okay, you can join this if you want. You can't automatically deduct dues from your paycheck. Because what they do is they pressure people to sign an authorization form, they give it, and then the dues just come out automatically. So we don't do that with these school unions. If you want to join, you can join, but then you give the money directly to them as you see fit. What that has done is I think it's shown just how much money has been taken out. People can make a judgment about whether they think that's good or not from them. I can tell you, the school unions in Florida have fought us on almost everything, and yet I've delivered more pay increases for teachers than any governor in the history of Florida. We've done billions of dollars in increases in teacher salary, increasing that average minimum salary so that we can recruit more teachers. It's very important. The school unions, though, in Florida, when we said in COVID, every school needs to be open in June of 2020, they sued me in court to try to close schools.
Okay.
So if they had their way, they would have locked these kids out of school for a year and a half, like they did in San Francisco and some of these other places. How they behaved during COVID, especially in some of these big cities, was a disgrace. They turned their backs on all these vulnerable kids. And the thing that really galled me is you'd have some of these union leaders that would send their own kids to in-person private school because they could afford it. The people that got hammered with those school closures were low-income, working-class families, particularly in urban areas. In Florida, we stood up for those folks. We understood it was that those kids could be in school 5 days a week in person. We understood how important it was that parents had the ability to get their kids into school. I mean, when you have a single mother who's providing for the family, she can't do that and be an in-person teacher at home and homeschool. So it just didn't work. And obviously the science on it was so backwards to suggest that kids shouldn't have been in school. But those school unions fought us on that. We beat the school unions. We got kids in school in Florida. And I don't think you would see our performance be where it is had we followed what some of these other states did by denying kids the right to an in-person education. We fought, we won, and the kids in Florida are better off as a result of it. Yes. We are in a situation where what they have been doing in Washington for the last 3 or 4 years is shutting down the American dream for American families. You're paying more for everything because of their conduct with respect to borrowing, printing, and spending of money. I think they need to change conduct. I think they need to do things in a way that is not going to exacerbate the inflationary problems that we're seeing fit. So when I get in as governor or as president, I'm going to do like I did as governor, and we're going to be willing to wield the veto pen if they're spending too much money. I vetoed billions of dollars in excessive spending in Florida. I think the record for vetoes had been about 800 million in one budget when I became governor. We broke that record. We did 3.3 billion in 1 year. That was about 3% of our budget that year that we vetoed, and that's part of the reason we've run big surpluses. That's part of the reason why we have reduced our debt, our outstanding state debt, the way we have. So I think these guys need to do what they said they were going to do. They all say government's spending too much money. We know it's caused harm to each and every American. Are they going to reverse course? Are they going to get us on a more sustainable posture? When Florida, we've showed it can be done. Our budget is half the size of New York's budget. And New York has 1 million, 2, 3 million fewer people than Florida does. And yet, anytime these New Yorkers move to Florida, what they'll tell me is how easy it was to get a driver's license, how the services were good, how the roads are better, all those things. So how is it that we can provide what needs to be provided at half the budget? All you got to do is have the will to do it. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for leadership to reverse the economic decline of this country, and that means they have to acknowledge the role that federal spending has played in creating the mess that we have. All right, guys, thanks so much. God bless.
So,
we'll see you soon.
I mean, he was just great. I mean, he was great. He was absolutely wonderful with this. Okay? The unions. Let me tell you how he took on the unions. When he wanted the schools to be reopened, the union sued him because they didn't want in-person learning. They wanted distance learning forever. All right. And he won that battle. All right. And this is when all the people, they loved him, all these people that are now like, oh, Chris, like you criticized DeSantis in the past. Yes, I did. Okay. I confronted him multiple times. And within like 2 or 3 weeks after I would confront him, he would do like exactly what I told him to do. So I'm supposed to be mad at him. The veto pen. All right. Well, immigration. I mean, he's going to stop this. Like, you're going to see him stop this in a way that you couldn't even imagine. The military down there, what they do on border walls in other countries is if you're coming across the border and you are not supposed to be, you get shot. Okay? Don't cross the Syrian border. All right? You'll get shot without permission. Here in America, you have all these schlubs. It's not like hot babes in bikinis holding babies coming in. It's all these like dudes. It's like, I don't want any more dudes over here. We have enough dudes. I don't want all these, like look at these guys. Look at them. Look at them coming in. Like it's all these like dudes. Like, we don't want them. Like why are they leaving their women and their babies to come in? Like, look at these guys. We don't want this. Look at this. It's a bunch of dudes.
Hola, ¿de dónde son?
Oh, get the hell out. It's all a bunch of dudes. And there's Border Patrol. Look, there's Border Patrol. They're walking right by them. It's a bunch of schlubs. We don't want any more schlubs. We have enough schlubs in this country. We don't. Do you want this? There's no women.
Hola, ¿de dónde son?
Oh, it's a bunch of guys. No. Get the hell out. Okay? And here they come. And we're just supposed to be happy with that? No. So DeSantis has said, we're going to put the military down there and we're going to stop that. Okay? We're going to stop that. The unions, he has stood up to them. He signed a law that severely limited the teachers' unions. And I know how they are because I'm here in Broward, okay? In Broward, the teachers' unions are out of control. All right? And they run things. And they allow these teachers that have been abusive to students to stay in the classroom. But then a teacher that opposes mask mandates and doesn't wear a mask to class, they won't defend that guy. But the most disgusting teachers that have it's crazy. They've been accused of telling a 15-year-old girl to come over and have a good time via text message and solicited sexy pictures of 15-year-old girls. Those teachers, the union will defend. Yeah, it's crazy. I know, but they do. But the teacher that wouldn't wear a mask to school, he got fired. Union didn't come to his help. So what DeSantis did was he limited the unions, and now they have to be audited every so often. And also, the money out of the paychecks can't be automatically deducted. They have to be deducted or sent. So there's no more automatic union deduction, okay? He stuck it to the unions. When it comes to the veto, we have something in Florida called the line item veto, okay? Which is DeSantis can strike certain things. They don't have that in Washington, D.C., but I have a feeling that he's going to be able to get these guys into line. You know, you see what's going on in D.C. right now, and it's craziness. I mean, Marjorie Greene. We need to impeach Joe Biden. We need to impeach Biden. And she doesn't have a plan to do it, though. She's trying to impeach him on Hunter Biden corruption and Steve Bannon nonsense. No, he needs to be impeached on the border, okay? Because that is where he's been derelict of his duty. Listen to Ron DeSantis talk about this.
Investigation into President Biden and his son?
Absolutely. This family is potentially the most corrupt presidential family in history. Joe Biden's already lied about the business dealings. We know that. We now see $250,000 going to Biden's address from China. So this stinks to high heaven. They're right to do it, and I support it. I would also point out that, you know, when you talk about things like impeachment, one of the things is just violating your oath of office. And I look at what's happening at the southern border. He took an oath to support and defend the Constitution, make sure that the laws are faithfully executed, and he has absolutely defaulted on that obligation, and we see the carnage that's happened. So I think there's a whole host of things to look at, but certainly this corruption is real. They need to produce the goods, of course, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And here's the thing: if all this was on the up and up, I don't think he would have been lying about it for all these years.
No, we'll see. Do you support
so
the investigation into President Biden and his son?
We need to impeach Joe Biden. All right. If you want to actually see that happen, then there's the guy who can do it. All right. There he is. So the RFK thing, okay? RFK has been so strong on medical freedom, taking on Fauci. DeSantis has said that he would put RFK in charge of like the CDC or the FDA or something. I mean, RFK has been great in fighting against these government agencies, suing them, being censored for it, fighting against Fauci while Trump was dry humping him. DeSantis has said, look, I won't make him a vice presidential candidate because there are some major fundamental differences. I mean, I am pro-life. DeSantis is pro-life. RFK, he has a different view on that, okay? But if it comes down to between Trump and RFK, oh, geez. Thank God RFK is running as an independent, because I would vote for RFK over Trump every day of the week, because Trump is pro-choice, okay? So, and much more pro-choice, I think, than RFK. And Trump has no principles. He just does whatever like he thinks is right. He doesn't care like about these things. So RFK is going to be as an independent. If DeSantis is the nominee, he will win definitively. And I think that Newsom will be a candidate. I think he'll be the Democratic candidate. The debate between them is coming up. And RFK as an independent will siphon votes away from Newsom as the Democratic candidate. Okay. So if you put up Trump, me and a lot of other people will vote for RFK. We're not going to vote for Trump. The hell with Trump. I don't care what happens to him and his supporters. They can all go to prison. I don't care. They're wicked people. They're bad for this country. They've done horrible things. They've put us where we are today. And he won't even show up on the debate stage to talk about it. But if DeSantis is the nominee, I think what will happen is RFK will siphon votes away from Newsom, who I think will be the Democratic nominee. And DeSantis will win. And I think what will happen is you will see an alliance with RFK. And DeSantis will, because he said he will do this, will put him in charge of the CDC, the FDA. Will stick, and he'll do it. DeSantis will do it. He'll take RFK and he'll put him over these regulatory agencies and say, okay, RFK, you want to do something here, go do it. He said he'll do it, and I think you'll see that. So I am glad that RFK is going to enter as an independent. I think it's fantastic. So let's get some music here. Where is it? Here we go. Have a great weekend, everybody. Yes, I love RFK. There you go, right there. Here we go. Everybody have a great weekend. I'm with you, man. If Ron doesn't, he will. He'll win it. But if he doesn't, it's great that RFK will give us a principled choice over Donald Trump, because I will never vote for Donald Trump again for anything as long as I live, because he's a very wicked man. Have a great weekend, everybody.